Hello everyone, in this video we will take a look at how we can work with WSL, which stands for Windows Subsystem for Linux. So basically what it is, we can actually run our complete Linux environments natively inside of the Windows machine. So we can actually run all these different command line utilities that are available for Linux from directly inside of our Windows machine. The other benefit with WSL is we can actually interact with or use our Windows application from within the WSL. So we will actually see that in the demo. So let's see how we can get started. So if we go to this URL, and then we can see how we can install WSL on our Windows machine. So we can actually use this command. So we can actually copy this and then we can run it inside of the PowerShell as an administrator, or we can actually go to Windows features and services, and in here we can actually maybe check this Windows Subsystem for Linux, so that way you don't have to run this command. So you can actually check it and then hit OK here. So this will probably restart your system and then install WSL. And after this is done, the next step is you can go to Microsoft Store, and in here you can search for any Linux environment. So I will be using Ubuntu and I want to use the latest version, so I will check this 1804. Okay, so you can see this is already installed on my machine, and if not, you can click on somewhere around here for installation. So I have already done this, so you can actually hit launch here. So this will actually open this window like a command line prompt, and in here we can actually run every Linux command possible so that you can run from your Linux machine. So let's try with ls. So you can see currently we are inside of the home directory. So if I do pwd, and here you can see I am inside of home and then my username. So now to go to the root of our Linux file system, we can do cd/, and now if I press lx here, so you can see we have all these directories so that are coming from our Linux file system. So now the other benefit with WSL is you can actually explore these file system with the help of Windows Explorer. So if we do explorer.exe and then dot, so we can actually run it from any directory. So here you can see I am running it from this root directory. So you can see all these folders and files inside of the Windows Explorer. So we can actually go to home and then my username, and in here I have a same folder called projects that we can see here. Okay, so now what we can do is, so let's try creating a new folder from inside our Windows Explorer, and let's name it ng-app. Alright, and now we can actually go here and maybe let's change the directory to home and then maybe my username and then projects. Okay, and now here I can add ls. So here you can see we have this ng-app here. Okay, and similarly we can go to our Explorer once again and maybe let's try deleting it. Okay, so this will delete this folder, and now I can hit ls here. So currently we don't have any project here, so maybe let's try creating it from the command line. So you can do mkdir. So this will create the new directory. So I will name it again ng-app, let's say ng-app1. Okay, so now we can go to the projects. So here we can see our newly created project here. Actually it's empty folder. So to remove it from the command line, we can do rm-rf, and then we have to add the folder name. Okay, and now we once again can go to our folder here, and if I hit F5 here, so you can see the folder is not there. So now this is if you are using the default Ubuntu command line. So we actually don't have to So we can actually use our Windows command line or any terminal that we have installed. So I have actually installed Hyper on my machine. Now in here we can see currently we are inside of our Windows Explorer. So if I add ls here, so you can see this is coming from the Windows. So let's clear it, and then to switch it to the Linux environment we can add WSL. Okay, so now we are inside of our Linux environment, but we are actually opening the folder that we have on the Windows. So in whichever folder we run this command, so this will actually go to this directory. So if I add pwd, so you can see we are inside of mnt mount c users and then my username. And one major point here is you should never try to change anything inside of the Windows from the Linux environment, and similarly you shouldn't change anything from the Linux environment from inside the Windows. So that means we shouldn't remove or update or add anything inside of this C users and then my username directory. So what we can do is we can go to cd/. That means we are currently inside of the root of our Linux environment, and that means we can make the modifications here. So now we can go to our home directory, and now we can change the directory to our username, and then we can go to our projects. And one thing to note here is this username and then this username. So they might appear similar names, but they are different directories. So one is from the Windows and one is from the Linux. So let's try creating a simple HTML web page, and then we can actually see how we can edit it inside of the Windows application. So maybe we can create a new directory. So let's add mkdir. So let's name it my website. Okay. So now if I use ls, we can see we have the directory here. So let's change the directory to our new folder here. And now the best part is we can actually open this directory inside of our code editor. In my case, I am using Visual Studio Code, and that is installed on the Windows 10 machine. So to do that, we know with VS Code, we have this command called code dot, and I am using insiders build, so that is code insiders dot. Okay, so now you will see this will actually open the my website directory inside of the Windows application, that is VS Code. Okay, so now here you can see we are using our VS Code instance from Windows, and then on the bottom you can see we have this WSL Ubuntu 18.4. so that means currently we are inside of our Linux environment. So to get it to work inside of VS Code, you have to actually install the remote extensions. So you can search for remote. So here you have to install the remote development extensions for the VS Code. So this will actually install the different extensions required. So I think in our case we are using this remote WSL. Alright, so once this is done, so we can actually work with our Linux file system from the Windows machine. So maybe let's try creating a index.html file here, and here let's add some markup. So we can actually add the title HTML from WSL. Okay, and maybe let's add h1 tag WSL tutorial. Okay, and let's add a paragraph, so we can add a lorem text here. Okay, and now we can go to our terminal here, or you can go to terminal and then new terminal. So here if you have node installed, so we can check for node-v and then npm-v, and if you don't have it installed, you can check for how to install node or npm on the Linux machine. So that will actually work fine here. So let's create a terminal here, and then we can actually install the HTTP server package, so that we can use to maybe run this command or run the server locally. So we can actually install HTTP server globally on our Linux machine. So here you can see we are getting the permissions issue. Okay, so that means you have to add sudo here. Okay, and now we have to add the password, so I will enter it, and now this will actually install it globally. All right, so this is working, and now we have access to this package, so we can do HTTP server. Okay, so we can see we are currently getting these URLs, so that means our server is running. So we can actually open this URL, and here we can see our application is running on localhost, and then this port that is given to us by the HTTP server. And now let's make some modifications here. So if I add WS tutorial, and maybe let's add update here, so I will save it. Okay, and here inside of this browser I can hit refresh, so you can see we are getting this update here. So that's how we can do the development using WSL. Now let's see if we want to do the Angular development with the help of WSL. So what we can do is, so maybe let's change the directory here, and so what we can do is we can actually install the Angular package globally. So we can do npm install -g at angular/cli. Okay, so we might get permissions error. If not, so that will install just fine. So it seems to be installing. Okay, so we are getting the error, so we have to add sudo here, and then we have to enter the password. So now this will go ahead and then install the Angular CLI globally. So that is installing it on our Linux environments. So now the Angular is installed, so let's clear it, and then we can do ng --version. So now you can see our Angular CLI installed, and then in the OS we can see we are running it on Linux x64, and in the Angular project, so what we can do is we can create a new Angular application. So let's type ng new and my app. Okay, so this will actually work the same way, and here we can select the routing and then the style sheet here. So now this will go ahead and then install the dependencies for our Angular application. So this might take some time, so I will be back when it finishes. So now the project is successfully installed. So what we can do is, so let's add ls here. So we can see we have this directory called my app. So let's change our project to this directory. So we can see, so currently we are inside of my app. So let's open this directory inside of the VS Code. So we can add code insiders dot. So this will actually now maybe open or download our code server for VS Code, and then it will open the folder inside of the VS Code. And now this is done, and we can see our server is starting, and here we can see the project is opened here. So let's open the new terminal here, and now to run the application we can do ng serve-o. So this will actually build the project for the first time, and then it will open it inside our browser. So now you can see our application is running successfully. So that is how you can do the development with the help of WSL.